Our second speaker of the Story Salon is Eve Chaurand. I actually know Eve as she's the president of the French-American Chamber of Commerce in San Francisco, and that's where I volunteer. So that's how I know her in the first place. But she's also currently the interim general counsel at Udemy, a global online education marketplace. Previously, Eve was general counsel of Change.org and general counsel and SVP of business development of Ask.com. She spent her career in Europe and in the US, advising clients on foreign investment and cross-border transactions, and leading the legal teams of global technology platforms. Eve spent the last 15 years supporting technology companies that enable social change, consumer empowerment, and making people's life better. Please welcome Eve Chaurand for this next Story Salon.
Thank you. So I am not as creative as Carla, far from it. I was the rational, logical, love to argue lawyer type. So I went to law school. When I was visualizing myself as a leader, as a teenager growing up in the 80s in France, we had the American soap operas that were dubbed in French. And those high-powered women with the big shoulder pads and the frilly shirts and the silky, turquoise shirts, they were sitting in boardrooms telling people what to do. And I thought, oh, that's what I want to be when I grow up. And so a lot of lawyers who end up working in-house are wannabe business people who couldn't make it to business school, so they went to law school, and I'm definitely one of those. But the first time I became a leader, I didn't visualize myself as a leader first. I kind of became a leader without really noticing I became a leader. And that's when, so I worked in a French law firm, and it's a little different system in France. You do law school as undergrad, and then you do the bar exam, and it's like a one-year bar school where you learn to become an avocat. And you choose a specialization in there, and I chose the international specialization because I grew up in Canada. That is why I don't speak like this with a very strong French accent. So I wanted to go abroad for a 2-month art internship. And I went to the law firm where I worked and said, send me to Brussels. And at the time, Western Europe was this really hot market for Eastern Europe. This is the 90s. Okay? And so they sent me to Estonia. And I thought, okay. I'll go, I can do anything for 2 months. 2 months, I can do that. And so I went to Estonia, and 2 months became 3 months, and 3 months became 3 years. And when I got there, I was 27. I knew nothing. I had done like a year I've done 4 years of law school, a year of bar school, a year in a law firm. I had, worked on projects. I had watched others lead, but I knew nothing. And I showed up in Estonia, and I was from the West, so obviously I knew everything. So people were asking me what to do. And the first project we worked on, this was the very first IPO in Estonia. The SD Telecom, the Estonian telecom, was being privatized and IPO'd. And we had to do due diligence, to inform the underwriters of what the risks were so that they could write the prospectus and put the stock on the stock exchange. And I was the leader of the due diligence because they asked me, well, you've done due diligence, right? I'm like, yeah, I worked in the M&A department in Moquet-Bald in France. Like, yeah, sure, I can do due diligence. I've done it. All right, great. Here's like 5 young kids who were even younger than me, I think. Go and set up the data room, work with the management of SD Telecom and do the due diligence report. And so, this fake it till you make it thing, it works. So you just do it. And I realized not only I was doing it, but I was teaching others how to do it. So, I had seen leaders do these things. And when I was in that position, I saw them do it. So I'm like, all right, I'll just replicate what they were doing. And I'll teach these young Estonian lawyers how to do it. And so that's when I actually realized that I was leading by teaching. And I think when we all, kind of grow up as leaders, we find what our leadership style is. And, usually you find that style by looking at the leaders around you. And, Carla mentioned some leaders who nurtured her. And, those people that really impact you and affect you, you kind of take those things that you like about them. And then there are other leaders, I'm sure Carla's seen them in her career, where you're like, oh yeah, no, I don't want to be that kind of leader. That's not the kind of leader I want to be. And so you kind of take little bits and pieces and then you reapply it. And the leaders, the people who always impacted me the most were the ones who taught me things. Where, every interaction I had with them, I came out of there knowing something or realizing something I didn't before. And so I decided that was the kind of leader I wanted to be, was to be a teacher. And teaching is not just, teaching the technical skills of this is how you do due diligence, this is how you negotiate a contract, this is how you run a client meeting. But it's also, leaving that space for folks to grow. It's really taking on the responsibility of the growth of others. And so I always, call it this altruistic leadership. So when I arrived at Ask.com after that, so of course I had to marry an American dude who said, there's this whole .com thing going in California, we have to go. And of course we went in 2000, which was like the worst time. We worked in small law firms, worked as a paralegal because I had to pass the bar exam here, so that didn't happen right away. Worked in a few law firms here, and then finally went in-house. The shoulder pads and the frilly shirts had gone out of, but finally I was in-house and I was in meeting rooms telling people what to do, which was fun. And that's where I continued, to try and teach. So that was kind of my leadership style. And so the one thing that Marion asked me to talk about as well, because this is something I talk about in other settings, is once you visualize yourself as a leader and you're like, that's it, I've made it, I'm a leader, I've got my SVP title, you have to continue to see yourself as a leader because the doubt, the self-doubt, can creep in. Careers are not this wonderful, beautiful, linear thing where, every time you get promoted and, you change companies and it's even better. And no, careers go like this. And you have moments in your career where you have a really difficult meeting. You pitch something to the CEO and got slapped down in front of a bunch of people, or someone violently disagrees or keeps second guessing what you're doing. Or, the role that you had in a company is no longer strategic. And so you're kind of, you have this mission within the company, but the company's mission is out of sync with what you're doing. And those are the moments where that self-doubt really can creep in. And so, you spin cycle of questions, why was I not invited to this meeting? Why is the CEO no longer cares about what I have to say? Why is every time, I send an email, nobody responds and it's being ignored? So then you start, being afraid to speak in meetings. And so, you think you're this like really self-confident, woman, and then all of a sudden you start shutting down. And that happened to me. That happened to me at the end. I stayed 9 years at Ask.com. And the last 2 years were in a business development role, as Marion said. And that's exactly what happened. The mission I had within Ask.com was no longer corresponding to the whole mission of the company. And when you've been 9 years and you kind of grew up as an executive in a company and all of a sudden you lose influence, you fall out of favor, those can be really, really difficult moments in a career where that, imposter syndrome kicks in. Because you start thinking, am I a fluke? Like, do I deserve the achievements that I had? Like, am I that good? Maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm a one-trick pony. Maybe I could just do legal and I shouldn't have ventured out to business development. And, maybe I should just go back to being a lawyer somewhere. And you start, thinking of yourself as not being able to, continue to do the things that you were doing before. And in those moments, the most important thing is to have a really good support group. So as Marion said, I was very involved in the French-American Chamber of Commerce. And we set up a group called the FAWEC, the French American Women Executive. Doesn't really roll off the tongue better, but I kind of call it my French Executive Sisterhood. And it's a group of women. We get together about once a month, month and a half. And it's kind of like Alcoholic Anonymous for women executive, who on top of that are French. It's in French. And we talk about our struggles, and we talk about, like, we're trying to get promoted and we can't get promoted, and it's like we have all these good mentors in the company, but no one's actually sponsoring us, that gap for women between the mentorship and the sponsorship. And so we try to coach each other. It's like a peer-to-peer coaching. And in those moments, those women were telling me, how dare you consider a director level position? Are you kidding? You were freaking SVP of Ask.com. Don't you dare take a woman where you're more than 2 steps removed from the CEO. And that really helps, because when you leave a company, that's when you're at your lowest, and you have to interview, and that fake it till you make it works again. You have to exert this confidence and tell a good story as to why you left this company where you were at for 9 years, and why you can add value to the next company. So I highly recommend you guys getting a support group from the get-go. And stepping outside of your comfort zone is also one that you see that you can do it, and get help when you step outside of your comfort zone. When I went from being a lawyer to taking on the business development role at Ask.com, there was a team. There was a team of guys there who had been in biz dev, and they taught me. So even as a leader, you teach, but you also learn from the people that you're leading. And so, making yourself vulnerable and open to that is also something that really helped me. So I was the younger one of 3 kids. I was not the middle problem child. That was my older sister. And both of them were 4 and 5 years older than me. So from the very beginning, I always heard, you can't do this, tu es trop petite, because I wanted to do what my brother and sister were doing. But since they were 5 years older, of course, my mom kept telling me, no, you can't do this, you're too little. And so I kind of grew with imposter syndrome, because I was too little. I couldn't do what they could do. But that's something that, creeps in for all of us, I think, and we have to make sure that we battle that, and that we continue to visualize ourselves as leaders, even when that creeps in. Thank you.